So this is going to be a retrospective on the first 3 SmackDowns we saw on the PlayStation 2, and I'm going to call it SmackDown Had Better Days. So first I'm going to take a look at SmackDown Just Bring It, which came out in 2001, and it plays very similarly to the SmackDown games we saw on the original PlayStation. And with that said, it plays too much like the early SmackDown games, so it was a bit of a letdown. Some of the improvements in this game include superior visuals, revamped create-a-player system, realistic wrestler entrances, improved season mode, play-by-play commentary, and of course an updated roster. But other than that, we are pretty much playing the same game. And when it comes to the commentary in this game, it's nice that they put it in, but it's so bad that it's actually laughable. There is more than a noticeable delay when the announcer puts a name in a quote, so it just comes off really sloppy. Now, a cool innovation I thought this game had was the ability to go over the guardrail and fight where the audience is at. Now, the audience looks like crap in this game, but it's still pretty damn cool that you can go there. And I'm really surprised future wrestling games haven't allowed you to do this as well. Now, getting into one of my biggest complaints about the game, it takes over half of your goddamn memory card, and it does it in one individual file. So not only is the file huge, it takes forever to save the game because of this. I really wish they would have broken up the save file into maybe season mode, settings, created wrestlers. It was just done in such a sloppy way. Now, as you can see from the video, the game plays very similarly to the PlayStation 1 SmackDown games, and if you enjoyed those games, you're definitely going to enjoy this game as well. But this game didn't really iron out too many of the problems we had in SmackDown 2, and really, you're getting the same game with better graphics. So I played the 3 PS2 SmackDown games in chronological order, and when I first played this one, it was still really enjoyable, but having played some of the later SmackDown games, this one's really hard to go back to. Now, I'm glad I have the game because I'm a collector, but I don't recommend the game for any other reason than that. And moving on, I'm going to look at SmackDown Shut Your Mouth, which was the 4th in the series, and finally a revamp in the game engine. From the get-go, the control feels much better and the AI is far less annoying, although they can still be very annoying. Nevertheless though, those changes alone make it hard to play older SmackDown games again. So the game features greatly superior graphics, improved season mode, more interaction with arenas and weapons, and other improvements all around the game that just makes it more solid. Some examples being, the Hell in the Cell actually resembles what it does on television, and it's also easier to throw them off and it can cause great damage, so it's just a lot more exciting to play. And when it comes to the ladder match, you actually got a fighting chance this time around. On the early SmackDown games, if your opponent jumps for the belt, they pull it down instantly, putting an end to the match. But on this one, instead of just being able to grab the belt instantly, you actually have to keep tapping the button to get the belt down. So this actually gives you a fighting chance of stopping your opponent, and it's just much better like this. And as I said, you have a lot more interaction with the arena and weapons in this game. You can actually climb the guardrail as you would a turnbuckle, and you can even climb the giant fist in the SmackDown arena. And when it comes to greater interaction with weapons, you can do things like kick a chair in their face or lay them down on a ladder so when you jump off the turnbuckle you'll cause greater damage. So even though the game is a lot better, it still has its problems. For starters, the game still uses the annoying ability system to adjust the character's stats. I've hated this system since day one. And also, they made super moves way too strong in this game. I've had the enemy pretty much finish me in 1 minute because they hit me with the super move, and that puts me out for the 3 count. So I really enjoyed this game. It was a much bigger improvement than I was even expecting, and even though it plays like the earlier SmackDown games, it feels much better. And as I said, this game still had some problems that really annoyed me, but fortunately, a lot of them were ironed out in the next release. And with that said, lastly I'm going to look at SmackDown Here Comes the Pain, which was the 5th release in the series, and it pretty much went downhill after this. Basically, the best way to look at this game is SmackDown Shut Your Mouth with a lot of improvements. Visually, the arena and character models look pretty much the same, but the audience in this one looks much better. Much of the audience is composed using 3D models, while the audience far away uses 2D sprites. In Shut Your Mouth, the audience was for the most part entirely composed of blurry 2D sprites and a few 3D models tossed in, which looked very sloppy. There were also a few changes made in the gaming mechanics that make it a lot better. For example, the grappling system was changed a bit. When you grab your opponent holding up, down, left, or right, you lock into an initial grapple. Depending on which initial grapple you use, you have different maneuvers. This allows your character to do a lot more moves. They also changed the reversal system. Instead of pressing square to reverse everything, you now press L2 to reverse attacks and R2 to reverse grapples. It was a little awkward at first, but I much prefer it. And they finally got rid of the ability system and put in attribute points. Typically a wrestler with higher attribute points is going to be a much better fighter, and they're also a much better partner to have on your team. So SmackDown Shut Your Mouth was a great game, but Here Comes the Pain ironed out a lot of the problems and made many improvements. The final result is one of the greatest wrestling games ever made. So I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this up. Now I enjoyed these 3 wrestling games, but SmackDown Here Comes the Pain is the one really worth getting a hold of.